cacerola.
You're hanging out after hours with Matt Anderson, presented by Inside the Gamecocks.
Welcome into the show, everyone. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. And just a reminder, this show is now on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. So Tuesdays, 9 p.m., you'll always be able to catch the show. The late night Gamecock show is a lot of fun. We talk about all things Gamecocks after dark. For those of you that may be joining for the first time, my name is Matt Anderson, and I am your host. We talk about all things Gamecock. So right now, it's a lot of Gamecock baseball, a lot of football stuff's going on. The basketball transfer portal is kind of a living, breathing organism at this point right now. So we'll have a lot of fun. Softball, playing Clemson tonight, looking for that season sweep. Maybe Phil can give me some updates on that game as we continue on in this show. But I think the first place we have to start tonight is with the women's basketball team winning another national championship. They've become a mainstay in the Final Four. Lady Gamecocks have only lost one game over the past two seasons. It's truly been one of the most dominant stretches in any level of basketball that I have ever seen. For those of you that missed it, the Gamecocks did beat Iowa on Sunday. The final score was 87-75. It was the most viewed game in women's college basketball history. It's funny enough, it actually had more eyes on it than the men's national championship game last night, with Connecticut taking down the Purdue Boilermakers. What's really fun about this is you kind of have, two teams very similar to each other on the men's and women's side, absolutely dominating. Last year, obviously the Gamecocks lost to Iowa in the Final Four, and then LSU beat Iowa in the national championship game. And this year, the revenge tour, as Dawn Staley and the girls talked about, came to a conclusion in a very big way. Avenging their loss to Iowa last year in the Final Four and sending Caitlin Clark to the WNBA. So I know that a lot of folks kind of got sick of the Caitlin Clark narrative. And look, it was pushed heavy by not just ESPN, but by national brands. I think it was Allstate that had a lot of commercials with her. She's a very marketable individual. And for women's basketball, hate it or love it, the conversation this year was Caitlin Clark. But the Gamecocks had other plans for her. Kind of recapping that game, it was a really, really good game. South Carolina got down 10-0 early. I think Caitlin Clark had 18 points in the first quarter. And after that, Gamecock defense led by Raven Johnson really put the clamps on Caitlin Clark, which was really fun to see. Brees Hall got in there, Raven Johnson, and they just constantly put bodies on Caitlin Clark, who did finish the game with 30 points, but it was a very inefficient 30 points. It took her 28 shots to get to 30 points. You could kind of tell that the bodies of the Gamecocks were throwing at her late in the game was wearing her down, both mentally and physically. And Iowa really had no answer. They made a couple runs, but it was never something where I felt like the Gamecocks were in a position to see that one slip through their fingers. So big kudos to the girls. It really was a team effort. Chloe Kitts with 10 rebounds and 11 points. Camilo Cardozo with 17 rebounds and 15 points. Pau Pau had 14 points, 3 of 4 from 3. The bench, Tessa Johnson, I mean, just an unbelievable run for these women, and to become the 10th women's team ever to finish the season undefeated with a national championship. Just can't say enough about that. I do know that the parade, the national championship parade, will be, I think, at 2:00 on Sunday in Columbia. So if you're around, make sure you get out there and you you celebrate these girls and what they were able to accomplish. It really is something to behold. You lose Cardozo off this year's team, but you bring back pretty much everybody else. Malaysia Fulwiley, I think, is going to be the next superstar in women's college basketball. And it's just great to see South Carolina and Dawn Staley have as much success as they are having. They are the unquestioned big dog in women's college basketball. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Real quick, Phil did give me an update. The women, I always say women's softball, but it's only women that play softball at the college level. So softball's down 4-0 in the middle of the 6th inning to Clemson. So we will hope that the Gamecock softball team can find a way to break through and get that season sweep against Clemson. Some news and notes right now. The big news is, or big thing going on right now, is that the Gamecocks are currently winning 1-0 against North Carolina in Charlotte. North Carolina is a top 15 team in the country. It's a border battle. It's one that the Gamecocks definitely want to win for multiple reasons, because the Gamecocks have had some midweek slip-ups. Not many of them, but enough for Gamecock fans to take notice. At the game right now, like I said, it's 1-0. Dylan Eskew started the game, and then Roman Kimball came in and really did what Roman Kimball needed to do. At one point, I think he had 5 outs on 19 pitches, forced a big double play when he came in for Dylan Eskew. The Gamecocks, I think in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th inning, turned a double play to end each of those innings. And it's really been not really a pitcher's – well, it has been a pitcher's duel with the Gamecocks only up 1-0 right now. But it's been a conglomerate of pitchers for both staffs. So the Gamecocks have Marlott out there right now. And just so if you're not watching the game, it's a 2-2 count with 1 out. Bottom of the 7th inning, Gamecocks are winning 1-0. If you're going to talk a little bit about this game so far, the big thing that's haunted the Gamecocks this entire season has been getting hits with runners in scoring position, and the Gamecocks, finding ways to scratch more runs across. So far, that really has been another problem for the Gamecocks tonight. So we'll see what happens the rest of this game, and I'll keep you updated. I got it up on the TV up here, but I did want to take note that everyone that is in Gamecock country, or at least on social media and in message boards, the sky is falling. Fire Mark Kingston. We're sick and tired of this. It's year 7, year 6, whatever it is. It's Omaha or bust. And while I see a lot of reasons for frustration for Gamecock fans, I just want to bring some relativity to this conversation. When you look at the SEC right now, which everybody in the world would remind you is the best conference in college baseball, far and away, bar none. Right now, just resetting the SEC East race right now. Kentucky is 11-1 in the conference, 27-4 overall. They have had the benefit of playing Georgia and Missouri early on in this SEC schedule, so that record might be a little ballooned at this point. They didn't play a murderer's row in their non-con, but so Kentucky leads the SEC East at 11-1. Then you have Arkansas in the SEC West at 11-1 in conference and 27-3. Just sterling overall records and SEC records. After that, you have Vanderbilt at 8-4 in the conference and 26-7. Gamecocks gave Vanderbilt 3 of those 7 losses. And then you have Texas A&M 8-4 in conference, 28-4 on the season. South Carolina gave them 1 of their 4 losses so far. And then you have Tennessee at 7-5 and 27-6 overall. And then you kind of have a hodgepodge of teams at 6-6. So you have the Gamecocks at 6-6 in the SEC, 22-10 on the season. Florida, who the Gamecocks play this upcoming weekend, 6-6 in conference and 17-14 overall in the season. They're really struggling in the midweek as well. And then you have Mississippi State 6-6 and 21-12 on the season. So right now the Gamecocks are actually sitting at 6th place in the SEC when you factor in overall win percentage as the tiebreaker. So if you're top 6 in the SEC, I mean you're going to host a regional. I don't care how how difficult it looks for Gamecock fans right now. Obviously, there's some things that need to be fixed. I'm not going to deny that, especially getting runs in when runners are in scoring position. I think that's been the biggest issue so far this year. And then the bottom of the order has just been almost non-existent at the plate, which has hurt the Gamecocks at times. And when you play in the SEC and you face the level of starting pitchers that the Gamecocks face, you really can't have holes with like your last four hitters, 1 to 9. When you get to 6, 7, 8, 9, and it really makes it difficult to even play small ball. I mean, not that you really ever want to, sacrifice a bunt with your 5-hole hitter, but even if you want to sacrifice with your 6-hole hitter, you're giving up an out, and then you likely have 2 more outs coming to the plate no matter what you do. So it's difficult. I think that the Gamecocks are probably swinging more than most Gamecock fans would like to see early in the count, allowing pitchers to kind of settle in on the mound and not really getting pitch counts up, which allows the other team to throw out a reliever that sees 1 through 9 once, and then they're bringing somebody else in, which can make it difficult. But that's just life in big time college baseball. And look, I'm right there with y'all. I mean, the perception for South Carolina fans is Omaha or bust. It's very similar to Kentucky fans on the basketball side of things, where it's Final Four, national championship, or bust. And that's just, it's a hard way to live. It's hard for the players and the expectations that get put on them, but that's why they're at South Carolina. They're at South Carolina to compete for national championships and College World Series berths. So I don't know if the issues that have plagued the baseball team are fixable. I would encourage you to make sure that you're watching Inside the Gamecocks every weekday, because Jamie Bradford and John Whittle know more about baseball than my pinky fingernail. They just know way more than I do. I can see the same things that the casual fan sees, and maybe a little bit more because I watch a lot of baseball and I dig into the numbers. But there are a lot of things that the Gamecocks will have to fix. And as I say that, Gamecocks are now tied with North Carolina 1-1. Looks like it was a stand-up double that brought a runner home from first. There's 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th inning, so the Gamecocks have 6 outs to win this game in regulation, we should say. So we'll keep up with baseball and softball as we continue on through here. I think that one of the things we need to talk about, and we'll talk a little bit about college basketball, like the grand scheme of things. I'm not really going to dive deep into transfer stuff right now because there's not a lot known at the moment. There's like 1,600 players in the transfer portal, and the Gamecocks are keeping things close to the vest. We know of a couple names, and they're on thebigspur.com. You can go check that out there. The name that's probably most prominent right now is JP Pegues. I've seen conflicting reports out there. I know that he had a good visit to South Carolina. I think that he likes being closer to home. His family now lives in North Carolina, the ability to watch him play more. He had a good visit to Auburn that came on the heels of a South Carolina visit. And I think he was at Florida this past weekend. And I'm hearing that he had a lot of things that he liked about Florida as well. We'll see what happens there. I know that there's an Oklahoma State kid that's out there, and I'm blanking on his name right now. He was a big-time scorer, big-time guy. He averaged like 15 points a game, 5 or 6 rebounds a game, and a couple assists. And he's improved his 3-point shooting every single season that he's been in school. Let me pull him up for y'all right now so I can get the name for you. The easiest way to do this is go to KenPom. Don't you love just doing this on the fly? It's so much fun, let me tell you. All right, so the kid that I'm talking about is Javon Small. He's actually dating Breece Hall. The women's player, Hall. He has 2 years of eligibility left, I believe. Maybe not, because he came in 2022 to East Carolina. So I don't think he has a COVID year, so he'd be a 1-year rental. But he had a true shooting percentage of 58.9%, shot 86% from the free throw line, 50% from 2-point field goals, and 37% from 3. He started his career at East Carolina, where he Shot 21% from three his freshman year, 33% his sophomore year. And then at Oklahoma State in the Big 12, he carried the load on offense and shot the ball 37.4% from three. He would be a fantastic guy to go get. I mean, he's the kind of guy that at 6'3", 195, he would be that Michi replacement, that Michi upgrade, if you will. JP Pegues is more of a lead guard, a point guard. I think the Gamecocks would likely take both of them if they wanted to come. I think that the Gamecocks are also looking in the transfer portal for another big. I think that they definitely need at least one more big. We'll see. They only have room to take three guys as of right now, and it's gotten really quiet on the transfer chatter for players potentially leaving University of South Carolina men's basketball team. But it's still a solid nucleus. We talked about that on last show. So we'll see what happens. I think that if they can get Javon Small, they can get JP Pegues. That's a really good starting point. And then it's just find the right big that fills the needs that you need to get going there. But big men in college basketball are a lot like offensive linemen, especially offensive tackles and defensive ends in the college football transfer portal. They are guys that are in high demand, and they're going to have their list of suitors. And for better or for worse, where South Carolina is in the pecking order right now in the transfer portal, it's not like they're Duke or Kansas or North Carolina or, heck, Connecticut. Connecticut is right there with those teams as well. And there are other teams like, Marquettes of the world that have had perennial success in the NCAA tournament and in their conference. Purdue, Michigan, who's been down a little bit lately, but Wisconsin. So like the Gamecocks have to kind of sift through the sand to find their diamond in the rough. And I think the Lamont will do it. He has a proven track record in the portal. Big news out of the SEC on the men's basketball front is John Calipari stepping away from Kentucky basketball. And all indications are he is going to Arkansas. And the numbers that have been thrown out for a contract, I mean, he's going to make pretty daggum good money on a 5-year contract at Arkansas. I've seen some things said that he will have the ability to bring in any transfer he wants, guaranteed transfer, admittance to the university, $5 million annual budget for NIL. It's going to be something serious. It's going to be weird after 15 seasons not to see John Calipari at Kentucky stalking the sidelines and bringing in top 5, top 2, top 1 recruiting classes. And I imagine he'll have similar success at Arkansas. Arkansas has already been a top 10, top 15 type of recruiting class in college basketball for a number of years now. And, seeing what Musselman was able to do at Arkansas, he's leaving the program in a difficult spot for John Calipari because I don't think Arkansas is a single player on the roster currently. I think everybody either graduated or gave their intent to transfer. So John Calipari is going to be starting with literally nothing, very similar to what he had at Kentucky coming into the season this year. It'll be interesting to see who Kentucky hires. But sticking with Arkansas for a second, I would be shocked if 4 or 5 guys from Kentucky's number 1 ranked college basketball recruiting or high school recruiting class don't end up at Arkansas. I think that you have a couple high 4 and 5 stars that are still available for recruiting right now in college basketball. I think that you probably see them end up at Arkansas. Calipari he's just a guy that he can recruit. He can recruit his tail off, and with a $5 million NIL budget, it's kind of like NBA free agency in that regard with what he's going to be able to do there. So I don't think Arkansas is going away. They were down this year, but they will be right back up. All the attention in college basketball right now after Connecticut pulled off what I believe to be, in my mind, the most dominant 2-year run in NCAA tournament recent history. You got to go back to Florida in 06-07 when they won back-to-back national titles. Before that, it was Duke winning them with Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, and Christian Laettner. What they've done to win every game last year and this year by double digits is something that is truly remarkable. And I know that a lot of people were upset that Lamont Paris didn't win National Coach of the Year, but I don't think that there's any way it could have gone to anybody not named Danny Hurley. So with Dan Hurley winning his second national championship, Connecticut's sixth, they are 100% a blue blood. They've won 6 of them now since 1999. And I feel bad for them because that was the story for 2.5 hours yesterday while they were on the court winning that game. And then when they cut down the nets. And since then, the entire eyes of college basketball are staring at Kentucky and who they will hire. I'm going to talk about this for a little bit because it does impact South Carolina. Lamont Paris finishes undefeated against Kentucky with John Calipari at the helm. But Kentucky is one of those jobs where outside of maybe 2 or 3 coaches in the country, they're going to pick up the phone when Kentucky calls. I don't think that it's going to be Dan Hurley. He's already pretty much said he's happy at Connecticut. I don't think it's going to be Nate Oates. He put out a statement right before the national championship game last night that he was happy at Arkansas. He had unfinished business, and that's where he wanted to be. I think the bigger issue with Nate Oates potentially going to Kentucky is the $18 million buyout that Kentucky would have to pay. And, Kentucky didn't want to pay a $33 million buyout for John Calipari to fire him. So biting off $18 million, then plus what they'd have to pay Nate Oates to be the head coach at Kentucky, I think is going to be a difficult pill for them to swallow. If they couldn't do $33 million, when you talk about 18 plus, you're going to have to pay Nate Oates $5, $6, $7 million a year to go coach there. He's going to want a 6-year contract. You're right back in that $33 million range that they were, in bed with John Calipari. So some names that have been thrown out there. Obviously, Dan Hurley, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to shut the door on Nate Oates. That could happen. I don't think it's going to be Jay Wright from Villanova. I don't think it's going to be Rick Pitino. I think everything that I've read, Rick Pitino is very happy at St. John's. If he was 20 years younger, he'd be all over this Kentucky job, but that's just not where he's at in life right now. I think what you're going to see happen is, maybe a Mark Pope. He's a former Kentucky player. Maybe not a name that Kentucky fans want to hear. You're going to hear Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan is in the NBA playoffs play-in game. His season could be over in 7 days. I think that they at least have a conversation with Billy Donovan. The NIL landscape and the transfer portal has just drastically changed the landscape of college basketball since Billy Donovan last coached in college. And he probably is safe for the Chicago Bulls as their head coach going into next season. But the following year, he could potentially be fired, and maybe he sees a big bag of cash at Kentucky, the resources to get the players that he wants. He's a proven X's and O's coach. He'd be the number one guy on my board. If I was Kentucky, I'd make him say no to me 3, 4, 5 times before I move on to somebody else. Scott Drew at Baylor is a name that's getting a lot of steam right now. I could see that happening. Evidently, he's very tight with some of the biggest boosters at Kentucky and also with Kentucky's athletic director. I don't think that the Gamecocks want to see Scott Drew or Billy Donovan at Kentucky, especially with Calipari at Arkansas and, just the litany of good coaches that are in the SEC right now. But that is the biggest story that I will be following. It's probably the biggest story in college basketball right now. It overshadows everything Connecticut did, because to have a year where Alabama football and Kentucky basketball jobs open up within 4 months of each other is something that I never thought that I would see happen. So that's a bit all on basketball. We've touched on men's and women's. Looking right now, Gamecocks are tied 1-1 with North Carolina in the top of the 8th. There's one out, and the Gamecocks have a runner on first. I'll keep an eye on this during this word from our sponsors and fill you in on what happens when we get back.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Quality that is guaranteed.
Well, we are back, and maybe we just need to take breaks left, right, and center because Gamecocks just plated a run. It is 2-1. South Carolina leads in the top of the 8th. I looked down for a second, and Gamecocks looks like they got a triple. I can't tell who got that triple, but looking at this now, I think he's clearly safe. There's a bang play at third base. It looks like, let's see. I don't know if he got him or not. I don't know if we'll have to see. The baseball game, it's 2-1 right now. This run will stand, by the way. This would just be the second out of the inning, and the out would be at third base. So 2-1 Gamecocks. It's been pretty much a pitcher's duel. Conglomerate pitchers for each team. We'll see if he got there. Okay. But yeah, so Gamecocks up 2-1, top of the 8th. Potentially have a runner on third. I'm watching this in real time with all of you. It's a bang play at third. I don't know. It looks like he got under the slide initially, but if he came off the bag, it might end up being an out at third base, but the run should stand. So, Exo make, I mean, please let the Gamecocks win. I promise you it would make my life better. Yeah, that's Brewer at third base, by the way. So Dylan Brewer at third. We're gonna see if this play is upheld. I'm still laughing at the please let us win. That is awesome. Gamecocks need a ranked win. I mean, this would definitely help the record, number one, but it'll give the Gamecocks a big midweek win over a top 15 team in the country and really set the stage for going to Gainesville this weekend. So, all right, I'm gonna, guys, I can't take my eyes off this. I'm sorry. I gotta sit here for a second with you guys. Appreciate everyone that's here tonight, by the way. A lot of fun here on these Tuesday nights, and we'll hang out for a little bit longer. All right. Well, Gamecocks did get a football commitment today, and Shane Beamer actually sent out 2 welcome homes. The one that's public right now is either Brian Rao or Brian Rowe. And he's a wide receiver, 6 foot. I think he's about 180 pounds. Heck of an athlete. You can go watch his Twitter feed and see him doing all kinds of crazy windmill dunks. And let's see. I called him out at third base. Sorry, guys. But yeah, Brian Rowe, 6 foot. Head coach has coached some college football players in the past. Jalen Brooks being one of them, former Gamecock wide receiver. So he knows talent, and he said that Brian's able to do things that Jalen was never able to do. So Brian Rao, wide receiver, 6 foot, 190 pounds, athletic kid. Just kind of started playing football. He predominantly been a basketball player. Averaged 13 points per game for his high school team this past year. And his coach kind of convinced him that football was the path forward in his athletics career to achieve the things that he wanted to do. I'll be honest, I haven't had a second to watch his highlights yet outside of a couple of Twitter dunks that he put on his feed. I'm going to look at that and give you my take later on. But for the Gamecocks to go ahead and get another wide receiver in the boat, that makes 2. You have Jaden Sellers from South Lawrence High School, a very high 3-star wide receiver recruit. Yes, it's Lenore Sellers' brother. And now you have Brian Rao on the boat. For the Gamecocks to take a commitment this early at wide receiver, the Gamecocks had to feel like this was a guy they had to get in the boat quickly. Internally, I know the Gamecock coaching staff is excited about it. Mike Fury is super pumped. He's a super pumped guy in general, but that kind of broke the cherry for him in recruiting. This was a guy that James Cooley offered. Gamecock coaching staff had been in on him, and everything just fell in place after he visited for a practice and he pulled the trigger. There is one more welcome home that has not been released yet. Can't give the name right now, but it's a guy that coaching staff's really excited about as well. So for those of you who were wondering when the Gamecocks would start piling up these summer commitments, I want to remind you, I don't think it's technically summer yet. Usually in the summer, you see a lot of official visits, and you can kind of start putting the puzzle pieces together for who could potentially be in the Gamecocks recruiting class. So real quick, it's 2-1. We're halfway through the 8th inning. We're about to go to the bottom of the 8th. Gamecocks struck out to end the inning. So 2-1 Gamecocks. Good guys are in front. When I look down here and I'm looking on Chat Row right now, Exo's wondering if they're going to pick up a bigger guy in the portal. So right now, here's the deal with the portal. Right now, the Gamecocks are 1 scholarship over the limit. Jackson Hughes, reserve offensive lineman, who came from Charlotte, I believe, did announce that he would be transferring. He was buried on the depth chart. He probably needs to go down a level or 2 to be a solid contributor in his the rest of his college career. I think he has 1 year left. Didn't really help us from a scholarship number count because Gamecocks have 86 players on scholarship. They got to get to 85 before August. I would expect to see some transition in the roster after spring practice when that next transfer portal window opens. I don't think that the coaching staff's going to run anybody off, but I think that some players might just see the writing on the wall for what's going forward here. So I think that you'll probably see some activity in the portal. I know the Gamecock coaching staff would love to find some more offensive linemen. They'd love to find some wide receivers. They're never going to turn down a good defensive lineman. And then in the secondary as well, they would love to find another cornerback that can compete and really push not only O'Donnell Fortune, but Vakari Swain. And then you also have Judge as well, Judge Collier. So Gamecocks probably, I don't see a way the Gamecocks can take more than 3 or 4 guys in the next transfer portal window. I don't see 10 more guys leaving the roster as things stand right now. But yes, wide receiver is definitely an area of need because the wide receivers right now are all, I don't want to say small. They're not small necessarily. They're just, there's only one. There's like CJ Adams, who I think is like 6'2", 6'3". Everybody else is in that like kind of 6'1" to 5'10", 5'9", 5'8" range. And they're going to have to do something there. It would not surprise me at all to see Juju find a way into slot receiver, kind of X role, kind of a slash role. And Luke Doty's still there, wide receiver as well. Don't forget about Luke. I mean, Luke's 6'1", 6'2", showed solid hands this year. But I mean, the biggest thing that the Gamecocks have to worry about right now, the rest of spring practice, is the offensive line. I don't necessarily. Okay, let's just talk about offensive line real quick, and we'll go ahead and we'll get this done. I don't know how many of you are members of the BigSpur.com, but there was a report from Tony Morrell, who just basically laid it all out there for you. The offensive line was abysmal in the first scrimmage of spring practice. I've heard that it might not necessarily be as bad as Tony laid out, but I think Tony, who might be, for my money, like one of the realest guys out there when it comes to Gamecock football, he's going to tell you what his sources have said and what he believes. And there's no doubt about it. The offensive line is a weakness area right now. Now, does that mean that it's going to be a weakness area long term? I don't know. I think that it's always important to remember that this is the second year of Dowell Loggins' system. They also hired Sean Elliott, brought Sean Elliott back, and I'm sure as run game coordinator, Sean Elliott and Dowell Loggins are implementing new things for the offensive line to learn, new things for the quarterback to learn on reads and adjustments. And this is a learning time. That's why bowl games are so important, because bowl games get you an extra 15 practices. Gamecocks missed out on that this year. Spring practice is all about installing an offense, and there are a lot of things that I'm sure are changing right now with Sean Elliott's emergence as the run game coordinator. Exo says, take all the wide receivers and offensive linemen and pray to all deities to stay healthy. Healthy is a big thing. I mean, I can't remember how many offensive linemen went down last year early in the season. I know Case and Henry went down, and that kind of shifted everybody and made everyone have to move around the offensive line. I think that, one of the things that I've been told is that there are some offensive linemen that are kind of out of shape, probably a couple of LBs heavier, maybe like 10 LBs heavier than they really need to be right now. But I always remind folks that in spring practice, look, I mean, I've known a lot of college athletes, and when they are, and look, they're still in the weight room. I mean, they're still doing those kinds of things, but when they're away from the team and they're on their own, nobody is saying don't eat McDonald's. I mean, no one's saying don't eat Bojangles. So maybe some guys have to make some better decisions on the offensive line, but when you get through spring practice and you kind of shake out the depth chart, there becomes extra motivation for a lot of players. You have the entire summer, all these summer workouts, you have fall practice. These guys are going to get in shape. They're not going to have 15 fat offensive linemen that can't move. That's just not going to happen. It's a work in progress right now, but it's not the end of the world. And for forever and always, I've always heard and seen and known that the defense is ahead of the offense, especially in the first scrimmage of spring practice. Defense is going to be ahead of the offense in the first scrimmage in fall camp as well. It's just what's going to happen. Now, is there some accountability that needs to take place on the offensive line? Absolutely. And Sean Elliott's a no-nonsense guy. So Lonnie Teasley is their position coach, but Sean Elliott is the overarching leader of the offensive line and the run game. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure that some reports will change. Some guys will step up. Some guys will shed the weight they need to shed. I think we're only like 8 practices in to spring ball right now. Spring game is April 20th. So we're only, count today is over, 10 days until the spring game. I know that Shane Beamer said that there are going to be some players that are held out of the spring game for injury precaution reasons. So I always say this with any team around the country: don't judge a team by their spring game. Spring games are no longer, 4 15-minute quarters where you have evenly matched teams and you're playing a real football game. They're going to do situational stuff. They're going to have different fun games that happen in the spring game. So don't judge anybody by the spring game. Looking at this right now, South Carolina is up 2-1. There's 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th inning, and North Carolina has a runner on first base. So we'll keep eyes on that for everybody as this game marches on. But getting back to recruiting for a second, Gamecocks have 2 public commitments. They have one welcome home that will probably be public here pretty soon. I don't think you have to wait too long on that one. But I just wanted to do the math here because everybody is freaking out. And look, would the Gamecocks like to have, 15 commitments at this point, 10 of them being 4 and 5 stars? Absolutely. Is that reasonable? Probably not. Just a reminder, when it comes to official visits, the rule changed in years past, and I don't know when this rule changed. I think it was like a year or two ago. But players at the high school level, rising seniors, and during their senior year had 5 official visits that they could take. That rule has changed. Players now have unlimited official visits they can take, with the caveat that they can only visit each school once officially. They can have as many unofficial visits as they want to a school, but they can only visit each school once officially. So prime example of this is David Sanders Jr. He has 1 crystal ball in for Clemson. He is a 5-star offensive tackle, number 1 offensive tackle in the country, carries a 99 rating from 24/7. Like I said, out of Charlotte, he has 1 crystal ball to Clemson. He's on the record saying that Clemson was his dream school, but he's taken official visits to Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson, and South Carolina. That is his top 6. He released that on March 2nd. So when you look at the caliber of players that South Carolina is going after right now in recruiting, these guys, South Carolina is the outlier in a lot of cases on the teams that they are considering. When you look at South Carolina's entire history on the football field, and especially recent history. Now, I'm not saying that David Sanders is a lean to South Carolina or Clemson or Tennessee or Georgia. He's going to take his 6 official visits, and summertime is when you start seeing commitments happen. When I mean summertime, looking at the official visit dates I know of right now, you're looking at April 19th, May 31st, June 7th, and then I think it's June 21st. So I don't know. I can't remember exactly when the dead period arrives, but a lot of these kids are going to be making their decisions in the summertime, which is ahead of their senior year of high school. And looking at it right now, I think that just by my quick math, South Carolina has 18 4- and 5-star players that are going to be taking official visits to Columbia, to South Carolina's campus between April and the end of June. That number is only going to grow. They're going to bring in kids. Kids always also rise in the rankings. You're going to see 7-on-7 camps in June and July and August. You're going to see players have great senior seasons. So don't get bogged down in the recruiting rankings as things stand right now. Looking at it, they have just really quick some kids that are going to be visiting. David Sanders, an offensive tackle in the country. Defensive end Jared Smith, the number 2 defensive end in the country. They have the number 5 wide receiver, Derek Meadows, visiting. They have the number 4 linebacker, the number 3 offensive tackle, the number 11 offensive tackle, the number 11 cornerback, number 15 safety, number 1 wide receiver, Isaiah Gibson from Warner Robins, Georgia. He committed to Southern Cal a few days ago, about 2 weeks, but he hasn't canceled the official visit yet. They have the number 7 defensive tackle in the country visiting. They have the number 1 linebacker in the country visiting, the number 3 linebacker in the country visiting, the number 15 athlete in the country visiting. So South Carolina is going to get players on campus this summer. They're going to put their best foot forward. You never know who the next Dylan Stewart is, who buys into the South Carolina message and says, this is where I want to be, and shuts it down and says, I'm committed. These things happen. So don't get bogged down right now. If we're in August and South Carolina is looking at, 8 or 9 commitments and very few 4 and 5 stars, then it's time to evaluate the players that they have. Because when you're taking commitments in the summertime and they're not highly rated players, they are players that the coaching staff has either seen in camp, or it's a diamond in the rough, under the radar guy that they're trying to lock up early. And I think that you're going to see that with Brian Rowe, the wide receiver that committed today, and then other players that the Gamecocks will find. If they're taking a commitment this early, it is a big deal. All right, so we are going to the top of the 9th now. Gamecocks hold a 2-1 lead over North Carolina, and that is where we will leave this show tonight. I am going to go find a comfy spot on the couch and jump up and down, yell at the TV for a little bit. But as always, I just want to thank all of you for joining me tonight. I say this every episode, and I really do mean it. When you join me for this show, whether it's live, whether you're listening to it in podcast form, you're watching on YouTube when you have time. You're giving me your time, which is the most valuable thing you have. And I always appreciate it. Never take it for granted. So thank you for being on this ride with me. It is so much fun to talk Gamecock athletics with all of you. And we will be back Tuesday at 9 p.m. Hopefully we're celebrating a Gamecock series win or sweep over Florida. And the Gamecocks will be coming off, hopefully, a win over North Carolina tonight. Do want to update you before I head out. The softball team tonight lost 7-0 to Clemson. So Gamecocks fall there, which tough one for the softball team, but they will bounce back and they will be ready to go at SEC play this weekend. So again, thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and let's root these Gamecocks on to a win over North Carolina. Talk to you soon. Bye.